السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. بسم الله والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Welcome everyone for today's scientific lecture and the last day of the Saudi Dental Hygiene Society First International Online Conference. At the beginning, allow me to introduce myself. This is Nada Sfayan, a senior dental hygienist and a lecturer at King Saud University and a board member at Saudi Dental Hygiene Society and a reader in dental materials field. So at the beginning, allow me to thank every one of you for your attendance and participation. Ladies and gentlemen, you were a part of this achievement. Please provide us with your valuable feedback by filling the pinned survey that can be found in the chat board. Now it's the time to introduce our first intelligent speaker, who will talk about the emotional intelligence for healthcare providers. She is a clinical orthodontist at American Academy of Cosmetic Surgery Hospital in Dubai and an assistant professor at European University College in Dubai, and she conferred the American Board of Orofacial Pain. So now let's give a great welcome to Dr. Lana Dalbah. Dr. Lana, the speaker is with the microphone is with you now.
Assalamu alaikum. Can you hear me well?
You can share
Lana,
your.
can you hear me?
Yes, you can start sharing your screen.
Perfect. Okay, 1 second. Okay, can you see the screen now?
Yes, excellent.
Okay, perfect. Great. So, assalamu alaikum, everyone. I am Dr. Lana. As Nada said, I am an orthodontist and orofacial pain specialist. And probably you are wondering why I am talking about EQ, although I am an orthodontist. Let me tell you a little bit of this background. It goes back to 2014 when I met an EQ trainer, just by chance on an informal setting. And from there, it started my journey into this EQ. I started to take course by course, and it has really, really tremendously changed my life. And then from there, I started to meet people who called themselves coaches, and I started to be curious about it, and then I became a life coach, and so on and so on. This led me to a really beautiful, beautiful journey on the side of my orthodontic career as a clinician and as a faculty. So I want to share with you today a little bit about what I learned. Of course, I only have around half an hour, so I'll try to squeeze in as much information as I can to make it as useful as possible. So we will talk a little bit about the history and then the science behind the emotions, the stress response, the EQ model, and how to put EQ in action, and a little bit about the assessments. I'm sure all of you are aware of IQ because IQ is more common to be taught or talked about in schools. And usually it is a test that we take to check our cognitive capabilities. But then as things developed, people started to find the deficiencies of IQ, because some people might not score very well on IQ, but they have other intelligences that are excelling for them. Like some people will be so good in sports or music and so on. So that also brought the deficiencies of our school system, where psychologists and social workers started to look at how our school system is taking people with different capabilities and intelligence and try to make them fit the template in the school system. And really this will really diminish their different skills and intelligences. And that proved itself to be extremely, extremely unbeneficial to humans. So that's why the EQ is now becoming the new IQ. So if we look at the history of EQ, probably you are wondering where this has all started. It all started in 1990, where these two gentlemen who are psychologists, were observing the parliament people who were fighting over an issue. So they were wondering how come people can reach to this high level of IQ and still be able to lose themselves on an argument and start fighting and calling them each other names. So they started to introduce this idea of EQ, which is the emotional intelligence, how to be smart with your emotions. Then in 1995, Daniel Goleman was the one to bring it more into the literature, and he wrote more articles about it, and he wrote his famous book, The EQ. And then 6 Seconds, the company that I will explain their model today, in 1997, made their model to be more friendly and less like theoretical, and we will see that. And then it became a very big hit on the internet where people were always searching, and it started to become introduced in schools to teach kids even about EQ, and in companies and so on. So this is Daniel Goleman, the one I told you about, who's kind of being the father of EQ. So he identifies EQ to be the capacity to recognize your own feelings and those of other people, and to motivate yourself and to manage your emotions well in ourselves and in our relationship. But 6 Seconds, the other company I told you about, they try to simplify these terms. So they just said to be smart with your feelings and to be able to effectively blend the thinking and feeling. And probably many of you know the movie of Inside Out, where it's talking about emotions. And I think this is a beautiful movie where it really brings out this topic to even the kids to be able to express their feelings. So how does EQ develop? It usually develops from our relationship with our parents, as how they teach us to express or not to express our feelings. And we know that we have this differential thing in our community and society that boys usually are not allowed to express their feelings, and girls are having a little more leeway to do that. So that all of that affects how we can start to be smart with our feelings. But the good thing is that EQ can improve throughout life. It's not a destiny for us. So if we become aware of it, we can learn it and we can enhance it. I did a study at EUC where I took 4 residents, and I did 6 months training for them to see what happens to their EQ score after 6 months of training. And as we can see, the gray is the initial and the red is the final. So we can see that 3 out of 4 have increased tremendously with their EQ. So that tells us and confirms that EQ is learnable. Then let's go to the brain, since we are healthcare providers, to see how emotions are processed in the brain. As we know, there are 3 main parts of the brain. We have the executive part, the prefrontal lobe, which is where makes us different than animals and other creatures, because we are able to have higher thinking and we are able to talk. We have the language there and the processing of math, and to be able to make decisions. And then the blue part is the emotional, which is the limbic system, is where we store emotions and we have feelings. And the survival one, which is the brainstem, that has the amygdala, that is shared with other creatures, which is what makes us be able to survive. It controls our breathing, and it controls other things that makes us stay alive. So many times we get what we call the amygdala hijack, which means that our prefrontal cortex got bypassed when we have an emotional situation. So for example, when we are walking in the woods and suddenly we find something that looks like a snake, suddenly we got this feeling in ourself that is dangerous, and we either have a decision to either fight, flight, or freeze. So if we look carefully though, maybe we will find out that it is not a snake, it's actually some leaves that take the image of the snake. Then we will feel good. But that initial response that we get when we are threatened is called the flight or fight response, which is useful. But many times we are hijacked with amygdala with emotional situations. So nowadays, for example, we don't have a lot of lions or threats that really endanger us, but we are responding in our bodies just like as if we have a lion from, for example, a text message or a phone call that will initiate in our body the same response of stress that will increase the cortisol level in our body. And probably you remember from learning about the stress response how the chemicals are released from the brain until there will be release of cortisol from the adrenal gland. So the danger of being always in a fight or flight response over small stuff that are not dangerous to our life or life-threatening to us is extremely detrimental to our health. We cannot be all the time in a sympathetic state where adrenaline and cortisol are high, because this will drain our body and not allow it to have a healing or a rest, which is usually achieved by the parasympathetic system, as you recall, where we have dopamine and serotonin that are usually give us satisfaction and where we are content about our life. And usually people who are always stressed chronically will start to have problems in their body. In their heart, they will have hypertension, diabetes, they are always in pain, and their immune system, a lot of autoimmune stuff are caused by a chronic low-level stress in the body. That's why it's important for us as healthcare providers to be aware of this, because EQ in the workplace is extremely important to reduce our stress. So there was a study that looked at doctors, and they found that 54% of doctors reported being burned out. They have burned out system more than a normal population. And we know that our career is very high in liability, and it always keeps us in this high stress response. On the contrary, they found that doctors who have high EQ, they usually outperform their peers because they are able to manage the situation that comes up in the clinic or in the hospital during their daily work. So how does EQ increase our performance? Because basically it teaches us how to reduce our stress, and that will mitigate the effect of stress. So research have found that EQ is 4 times more important key factor for success than IQ. And probably if you remember some of your colleagues, you will find, yes, as you remember maybe teachers or colleagues, that some people didn't have a lot of high credentials, but they were really loved by their peers or by their patients. And that's why people with average IQ outperform those with the highest IQ 70% of the time. Sorry, people with average EQ, I mean, will outperform those with high IQ. Because we are usually people, we like interactions, we like, connection. So that matters for us more than the credentials, whether we are in a career or whether we are in a relationship, whereas it is a husband or wife or even parents with their kids. And that's what matters usually. If all our credentials are the same and we are applying for a job, usually the EQ will make the decision. The higher EQ person will be more hired than the other one because they will feel the connection to that person and they will hire that person. So remember, usually high IQ will get you hired because of the credentials, and usually the system will look at the CV, while low EQ will get you fired because people will not like that person. They will feel they are not good team worker. They suddenly become angry. They are not connected. So it is really important that we work on our EQ. So let's look now at this EQ model. Let's put the theory in action. Today, I will discuss with you the 6 seconds model, which was the company I trained with. I have no affiliation with them. I have no interest with them, but I like their model because it's simple and it puts really things into action. So their model is divided into 8 competencies. And as you can see, there is the blue part where you know yourself. And then the red part where you choose yourself, that has 4 competencies. And then we will talk about give yourself, that has 2 competencies. And the nice thing about this model is that it can be measurable. So this was the spark actually for me when I met my friend, that I looked at my assessment and I was able to see what was going on in my life and why I was having some problems handling certain things. When I looked carefully at my assessment, I learned what are my strengths and what are my weaknesses and what I need to work on. So let's start with knowing ourselves. So the first competency is enhancing emotional literacy, which means to be able to accurately identify and interpret both simple and compounding feelings. If I ask you now, can you name your feeling? And I think many people like to use the emojis because they are an expression of feelings. We all of us like to use emojis and stickers, and many people spend time finding the right, emoji that express exactly how they feel. Many of us like to do that, but if I ask you to write for me 8 positive and 8 negative emotions, or positive and negative emotions, we will find that we are usually very limited in our expression. Probably we don't go more than 8 or 10 words. While what we need to do to enhance our emotional literacy is to expand our knowledge, our words, our vocabulary, because this is the building block. Like literacy meaning be able, like as if you're learning a new language. So we need to learn more words because this is the building block to be able to know exactly how we really feel, because this will take us to the next step. So try to expand your knowledge of words, of emotions. Then the second one is recognizing patterns. And recognizing patterns is basically to recognize your typical reactions. And because many of us are on autopilot mode, we do things without really thinking about it. And this can bring us into problems because, like Einstein said, insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. So that can be, a limiting factor that we need to look back, stand back and look at our life and recognize, like, why does same patterns keep happening in my life that are unpleasant? I need to look back and really be able to look underneath the iceberg, because usually the problem can be something, but the real reason is something really much deeper than what we see. So that's what we mean by recognizing patterns. So lay back and look at the situation and the problem that keep recurring in your life from a different perspective. Then let's go to the red ones, which are choosing yourself, which make you do what you meant to do. And there are 4 competencies here. The first one is apply consequential thinking, which means anytime you want to make a decision, you have to pause and evaluate the costs and benefit so that you are making a right decision. Now, if you are someone like me, when I did the first assessment, I was very high in that. And I felt so happy when I saw my assessment. But apparently, this has led me to be stuck because I kept evaluating the cost and benefit, but I wasn't moving forward to make a decision. So it's kind of like, everything has a plus and minus and advantage and disadvantage. So we always want to be balanced in our skills. So also we have to balance between our brain and heart, because many times our intuition is also guiding us to the truth, but our brain can be not, making logic of it. So it's a balance between two. Then the second one is navigating emotions, which is being able to respond rather than react. We were programmed usually that emotions are bad. Like we don't want to feel sad. We don't want to feel embarrassed. But the reality is emotions are just energy in motion. They are data. They are information. Imagine if you put your hand on the hot stove and you didn't have this feeling of pain. You would have burned yourself. So this data that this stove is hot and you remove it gives you information. Same thing when you feel sad or embarrassed or whatever feeling you have. It is important information that you can build a decision on. The main idea, if you want to become an emotional intelligence person, is to be able to respond rather than react. Meaning what? Meaning you are usually, when we are faced with an issue, we quickly kind of jump to, react to the situation, mainly if it is unpleasant. Like if someone come and tell you you are stupid, immediately you will defend yourself. You will either kick them or talk back at them. But if you are an EQ person, you will remember to pause before you jump into any reaction. So that's why the name of 6 Second has come, they named the company behind that, because as you can see from the logo, this is their logo, is 6, meaning remember like 6 favorite things before you respond, or count from 10 to 1 backwards. Like give yourself time so that you don't get the amygdala hijack. The idea is to give yourself time so that you are not hijacked by the situation that happened. This will give you time to respond properly because you have passed by the information to your prefrontal cortex. Just like receiving an email. Many times if we receive an email, let's say from our boss or someone who annoys us, quickly we would jump to type back to them. Don't do that. This will always put you in trouble. And many of us have regretted situations because we have quickly responded and we were very aggressive or we didn't think it through. Then engaging intrinsic motivation, meaning to be energized and driven by your personal values, because many people can be after some time spending time at work, for years, they feel like they lost the spark. They don't know really why they are doing what they're doing. So it's important to look at really what motivates you. Is it an extrinsic motivation like reward, money, status, or praise? Or is it a real intrinsic motivation like having a life purpose and being able to live by your values that you like? Because that will make you happy and excited to get out of bed every morning. Then we have the optimism. We need to be proactive and look at hope and possibility, even in the worst case scenario. So an optimistic person usually would look at any adversity or failure as something to be temporary, isolated, and effort lacking. Like it's not the end of the world. It doesn't mean I failed one time that I am a failure. It's just a temporary thing. While the pessimist will usually look at it to be permanent, pervasive, and personal, like I am never good enough, it always happens to me, I will never be good. So it's important that we become optimistic. We always look for possibilities and know that there is good in the bad and try to work it out. So this took us through know yourself and choose yourself with all these 6 competencies. Now we will go to the give yourself. Giving yourself has two competencies, which is increasing empathy and pursue noble goal, which is going from success to significance, where you do things for a reason. And I think for us as healthcare providers, this is what we really want to understand, which is increasing empathy. And empathy means to feel in parallel to someone else's feeling. And the research have showed that doctors who have empathy towards the patients, where the patient feels that the doctor really cares for my well-being and for my situation, it will reduce the patient anxiety. It will improve the clinical outcome and reduce the malpractice claims. And I think all of you have experienced going to a doctor who felt very dry and he wasn't look at you in the eyes. You didn't even want to go ahead with their treatment. While someone who was really interested in your health and your situation, you feel even you get out of the clinic cured and healed. When in their studies, they ask doctors why you object to do empathy, the doctors usually would answer that I don't have time. And when they are really being honest, they would say, I don't know how. So the doctors, either they don't have time with the system of insurance and having a patient every 5 minutes where you cannot empathize, or maybe they don't know. So in this, Annabelle Jensen, she's a PhD in psychology, she said that the 5 steps to empathy are usually to recognize body language. Mainly as healthcare, we are in intimate usually position and relation with the patients. We really have to be good at educating ourselves how to get the clues of body language, of fear, being apprehensive or being happy, whatever, to be able to listen not only by our ears but also by our heart, because many times our patients are trying to get over a message that they can't say it very clearly and directly. To notice the pain, to respond verbally, and to respond with actions. So the reason real empathy takes no extra time in reality is because true empathy is not about actions, it's actually about a feeling. And trust me when I say that the patient will really feel, even if you don't have time, that you are really caring for them. So that will...
Dr. Lana, we have 5 minutes.
Okay,
Can you
perfect.
finish? Okay, thank you.
Yeah. So the reason real empathy takes no extra time, as we said, it's more about the feeling rather than the action we would do. And then finally, the pursue noble goal is to connect your daily choices with your overarching sense of purpose. And that really has made me understand life or look at it from a different lens, where your noble goal is basically your life purpose, where you have a goal that is not completed in your lifetime, that's pointed outwards, that integrate different domains, get you out of the bed, and will make no one made less. Meaning it's more about what is my message? Why am I here on earth? So I encourage you to really think about what is your life purpose, and to sit and even research how to know your life purpose, because that will really change all the situation. And as Picasso said, the meaning of life is to find your gift, but the purpose of life is to give it away. So let's put EQ in action and finish with that. So if you have a situation, to put this in action, I encourage you to memorize these 3 questions. To ask yourself in any situation, what do I feel? So name your feeling very well. And then ask yourself, what are my options? Because there are always options. And then finally go with, what do I really want? When you really dig deep into what do you really want, you will be able to choose one of the options more clearly. And that will take you to the right decision. So if you don't remember anything of this lecture, just remember this slide. What do I feel? What are my options? And what do I really want? This was able to take me out of trouble in many, many situations and lead me to the right decision. And finally, the AQ assessment, as I said, are usually assessments that are made by taking a questionnaire out of 70 questions. It will give you all these competencies, what is your score, and your relationship and quality of life and health. And even you can run different profiles and know different apps in your brain. And even I did a lecture about brain styles. You can find it as a recorded webinar on my YouTube. It's around 45-minute lectures that talks about the different brain styles and how we are different people with different brain styles, and this will make us understand why sometimes we clash with certain people and how to work with people different than us. So I encourage you to really look into that webinar if you want to learn more about different brain styles. So in conclusion, in summary, EQ and IQ complement each other, but EQ is what differentiates outstanding leaders, teams, and organizations, and of course, doctors and healthcare providers like us. I really wish you a great deal of success in your EQ journey. As I said, this was a summary, a very quick summary. I usually give this as a course of around 4 hours. You can find this course on iDental Academy. There are a lot of courses about that, and you can also find follow me on Instagram and YouTube, and I put a lot of information relevant to that topic usually. Thank you so much.
So much for this great lecture. And if you allow me, you just gave this lecture in the perfect time as we are facing like some stress regarding this pandemic event. So I think we have one question Please, if you have any more questions, write them down, and I can see them so I can tell Dr. Lana about it. One of them yes, okay, one of the questions is how we can put our EQ into practice.
Yes, it is what I said in that slide, is to really put this, is to ask yourself these questions, no matter what the situation is, whether it is a family situation or with a patient or any situation. What do I feel? Like a patient, let's say, starts screaming in the clinic. What do I feel? I feel embarrassed. I feel, I don't know. What are my options? I can either talk to them quietly and try to quiet them down, or I can scream at them, or can avoid them, or whatever. And then what do I really want? I really want to take the situation and calm down and not make a big mess in front of everybody, for example. So then that will take you to the options to choose from them what will lead to that, what you really want. You know?
Yes, it gets more clearer. Any more questions?
If you have any more questions, you can always email me at my email, ldalbah@gmail. Or as I said, on Instagram, I'm quite active. You can also send me a private message.
I think no more questions. Let me double check for the last time. So no more questions. Thank you, Dr. Lana, for this great presentation. So on behalf of Saudi Dental Hygiene Society, first of all, can you stop sharing your screen? Okay, thank you. Excellent. Okay.
Sorry, I was very fast because of the limited time. As I said, I usually
Sorry about that, but
share
we have to.
many,
Yes.
stories and things that happen in my life. But I wanted to really just respect the time and finish on time. But that's why I was fast talking.
Thank you. So if you want to give one, we can have like 5 minutes.
About if I can add something.
Yeah. Maybe 4 minutes we can have.
4 minutes. Yes, I will tell you there. I would encourage you, because of my journey in these soft skills courses, I encourage you to really start your journey to look into these. There are a lot of courses online. Many of them are free and some of them are really minimal, like Udemy, Coursera, and many, many other platforms have many good courses in soft skills. I feel it is when I used to go to courses, most of the people are either in hospitality or customer service or call center. And I thought, like, why would all these people, it's important for them to learn soft skills and how to handle people. And we as doctors and healthcare providers, it's never taught to us in school. I felt it is very strange how we are expected to just know how to handle our emotions and our patients' emotions just like that from how we were raised at our parents' home. So trust me when I say we are very deficient in how to handle our emotions and our stress as well as our patients. So I encourage you to really proceed with more courses and to learn more about those topics.
Yes, I agree with you. And I believe with more practice, we will more master it.
Inshallah.
Inshallah. So on behalf of Saudi Dental Hygiene Society, I would like to thank you.
My pleasure.
For giving this intelligent, actually, presentation. And please accept our certificate of appreciation for your valuable participation. And inshallah, we see you in next events. Bi'idhnillah.
Thank you. Let me take a picture of that.
Okay.
Thank you so much for this, and I really wish you all the best. I know it's a lot of effort to put a conference together, so chapeau, like they say, for all your efforts. And
Thank you so much.
thank you.
Okay, thank you.